Now that we got that out of the way, Grandpa.
God,
Come on.
I'm the old man now.
Oh, come on, Boomer.
Dang it! This is. I don't know if I like this anymore. Does that mean I have to say like and subscribe, and you said the other thing?
We can do it.
Like and subscribe.
Hit the bell.
I'm so confused by this. So we're talking today about a very critical issue. Actually, it's really not that important.
It's critical.
But it's important to us. I saw a meme where it was like, it's the dude from The Simpsons. He's standing in his underwear, and he's like, I play a $28,000 vintage guitar, blah, blah, in my living room. The dude underneath him is like, well, I play a $300 Mexican Strat to actual live people. And I think that's been the stereotype and sort of like the trope for a long time, right? They're like, if you play live, you play some cheap guitar. Even if you have nice guitars, you drag out your cheap guitar, right? Your kind of crappy rig, and you don't care about gear. I don't know if that's true anymore.
I kind of agree. Like, I think it's kind of shifting gears in a way. You know what I mean? Like, at what level do you think it starts, though?
Well, I just think, like, I'm trying to think back to when since I'm the old man, like when I was your age, right? Like, I didn't know anywhere near as much about what was out there as far as, like, boutique gear or, like, anything beyond, like, American standard, and Fender amps. Like, yeah. I didn't know about, like, the custom shop, really. I mean, I have vague awareness, right? But I wasn't out drooling over custom shops or, like, looking online in the same way because it just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But now that everything's online, now that we know what gear everybody's using, now that there's channels devoted to John Mayer's rig.
Well, I feel like,
like YouTube channel.
Releases have probably changed, right? Where you see like, oh, there's like a hot new thing that everybody wants. It's a big drop now. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like it's more like amongst musicians, it's more of a cultural like gear thing to like lust after, a custom shop or, a Murphy Lab or, this Novo or whatever, Castadosa, right? Like,
yeah.
I just don't think I was that tuned. If it wasn't in Guitar World or I didn't see it in my local people playing around me, I just wasn't that aware.
Yeah.
I was probably more aware once I got to Nashville,
Yeah.
But my experience even in Nashville, you could find the dudes playing, Squires or whatever. There was that sort of camp of player people, which is fine, and God, truth be told, a lot of those guys did have amazing tone, playing like a Squire or Blues Junior. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of times they were older guys who've been doing it forever, and they just had their particular tone really dialed in.
Yeah.
But most of the guys that were my age, we were into, like, we were always on the hunt for, like, vintage amps and, like, you know what I mean? Like, if we weren't playing, like, during the day, we'd go out and we'd scour, the city for deals, right?
Tone hunting. I like it.
Or trading, we'd be trading stuff or always this pedal or, and a lot of it was pedals, but a lot of it was, like, amps, one amps, vintage amps, boutique amps. And then it did lead into, like, either vintage guitars or, like, everybody wanted like a Crook Telly or, PRS stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, most of the guys I knew, sort of from that point forward, were gigging with pretty expensive, pretty cool stuff.
So for me, I didn't find out about good gear. I'll say, well, probably not good gear. I shouldn't say that. Just, the next level of gear. Yeah. Until I started working here, or at least not working here, but coming into here because I would go to like Sam Ash and stuff. I wasn't really like a internet like crazy, like getting into the forums and dig in, or even just being a part of that realm. So whenever I started getting into it, it was just through walking through the door here and realizing like, oh, there's more to life than a twin reverb and a made in Mexico Jazzmaster. It's like I didn't realize there were so many levels. There were so many different things of, like even Fender alone, like what Fender makes new, and then the vintage stuff and everything. I was like, whoa.
But like a twin reverb is a pretty great rig.
Oh, it's a killer. Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Like that was, but I couldn't even tell you. That's a weird thing for me. I can't remember where I've heard of those things from.
So instead of talking about like what's good, because across the spectrum, it's an amazing time to be a guitar player. Like there's good stuff in every tier, whatever you want to, I hate even calling it that, but every range you could make a usable, giggable, great sounding rig. But when you go out, you probably go out more than I do locally. What do you see people playing?
I mean, I'll tell you the biggest thing right off the bat is like Taylors and stuff like that. But surprisingly, I do see a fair amount of Martins, but everything locally I see it's kind of weird because you'll either see the lower end tailors or you'll see somebody playing like some like I've seen a couple of 800 series out recently, which is fine. Like open mic as well. We had a guy who used to bring out a $5,000 tailor all the time.
The one that was what about the dudes Brazilian Rosewood Taylor, a good friend of ours, would bring that out to open mics.
Yeah,
and that was a $11,000 guitar.
Yeah, and I mean I feel like I see a ton of that. Where there's a lot of that. And you still see people like they got their Epiphone acoustics or in even getting into the electric world. What I think I've seen more of though, and it's weird at the local level, is like these kind of like oddball boutique things coming out. Because I have seen like a couple of Nashes around town. Seen a few guys who play nothing that's like Fender custom shop, but at least like a custom guitar or even a custom amp. We got that one friend who has the little Walter 3x12 or whatever 3x.
And that's what he gigs with.
Yeah.
I mean, they get telling like he is by definition, he's a professional musician. That's what he does for a living. So,
right.
I mean, not that makes a huge difference, but he's playing that amp 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't feel like I see a ton of, I'm not seeing a ton of like the Mexican Fender stuff and like Hot Rod Deluxe. I'm seeing like, I feel like I see a lot of like American Pro 2 kind of stuff.
I've seen tons of American Pro 2s for sure. It's either like American Pro 2s. It's funny because if I see somebody playing like a Made in Mexico Fender guitar, they're usually playing a pretty nice amp.
Yeah.
I know this kid around town who plays a Made in Mexico Fender Strat, which is fine. It's a great guitar. I would tour with it and play the hell out of it, right?
Yeah.
And he's running like this really badass Princeton reverb, you know what I mean? Like he spent big on the amp, which is cool,
Was it like the hand wired one or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's it's pretty dope.
I mean, I drag magnetons around everywhere.
Well, I was gonna say too.
Sometimes too.
So in Nashville, did you feel like there was like a turn of the tide, or was it just like, okay, guys are playing custom shops, Novos, different things like that out live, along with like Two Rock and stuff? Because I've heard you mention stories before where guys would come out with like a Two Rock rig or something.
There was a few of those around. I mean, the thing of Nashville, right, is you were walking to your gig from your car. So like even if you park downtown or maybe you Uber, but it wasn't like, you pull up and park behind and load in. Like it was a load in's a pain playing in on Broadway in Nashville. So I feel like that had to be sort of balanced with what your rig was. But lots of like Dr. Z's, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Lots of vintage amps in Nashville, man. Lots of vintage, like deluxe reverbs or even Princeton's, but probably more of that than anything.
See, I feel like you almost don't see that many vintage amps at the like local level. You know what I mean? Which is wild because you think it would be a bit more of that where it's like, oh, my grandpa had this or that. You know what I mean? But
I don't see that much at all. You know what I mean? Even old like Silverface Twins and stuff. Well, at least we don't see it here. I bet that is very regional. I bet that changes like different parts of the country. Because I have been places where I see this, everything I see is like Silverface, 70s Twins. You know what I mean? So I guess it just depends. But in Nashville, that's what I saw a lot was like vintage stuff. But I mean, you see plenty of iRod stuff, like iRod Deluxes in Nashville as well. But I think part of that is being able to carry it or like a dolly, right? So lots of Dr. Z's, lots of that stuff. Not as much like crazy boutique that I saw. I mean, occasionally I'd see a Matchless. But it just, it just depends. What I see a lot in the way of like boutique, like as far as like top tier, like spending, and I think this is probably true across the board, pedal boards.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even locally, I look on dudes' pedal boards and I'm like, holy, you know what I mean? They got like the newest junk.
Yeah. Well, that's like where all the money is on stage, if you were to think. Right. Like locally, especially, like you bringing that up, completely spaced my mind. But yeah, that's all those guys I was talking about, whether they're playing like the Taylor, no matter what it is, they have the whole Strymon setup mixed in with all the JHS stuff and everything else. And it's at least a $2,000 pedal board, if not more.
Well, that's like our buddy Kevin that plays for those two dudes, Fiasco, right? Like
he's got
a killer setup on his pedal board, and I noticed it the other day. I went to an open jam thing, and he had his board up there, and they were running direct, and I was like, dang, this is a really nice board, and I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think in Nashville you see that because that was the easiest way to change things out in your rig without going crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go spend $300-$400 on a pedal.
And, well, well, that's the thing, right? Like, it's silly, it's crazy to think that, right? Like $300-$400 on a pedal, like, because to me, like,
it's like mind blowing. It used to be mind blowing. I would be like, what? A pedal was $100.
But now I'm like, just like, oh, well, I'm gonna buy a couple of pedals today, and like spending $1,000 on a couple of pedals versus, like, oh, I bought an amp. That seems like such a big purchase, the amp, to where it's like the pedal I'll spend a ton on. I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll just shovel this out.
But I can remember, like, you would, like, I think partly in, like, maybe in music cities, like, guys I play with, we would work up to buying. Like, I remember one of my friends on the hunt for, he had saved and he bought 3 for $35. Same dude, we went on a hunt for, like, buying different vintage amps, or he a Wagner Goldfinger. You know what I mean? There's like different stuff, and then we would go try it. And the same thing, I would be buying vintage stuff, and we would just geek out together that night. The first time we'd have a gig, and we'd get to hear the other dude's new thing, And a lot of times it was trading stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I just think it's part of the fun. But I just don't see the, like, really cheap guitar, really cheap amp. Definitely not the really cheap pedal board as much anymore. I think that maybe that, it's more the hauling, $5,000-$6,000 worth of gear into your $500 car to drive. It's more that is what I see.
I see. I see more of that with the shows that we've started to play, and we got to open up for this touring act a while back that came through Motorco, and looking at their rig and setup for the big band that was playing that night that we were on the bill with, it was wild because I think the guy had a Wagner Goldfinger. That made me think of it, right? He had that behind him.
I think I saw that picture and it made me think about looking for that amp, or my friend Tyler getting that amp. But
I mean, he played that, and then they had, the one guitar player, I swear, if he wasn't playing vintage Gibsons, like from the 60s, he was playing really, really nice custom shops. Like great.
Not Murphy Lab, like Murphy H.
Oh, yeah, they looked insane. And, they were just running wild rigs, It's like, damn.
I do think a lot of times we're in a dive bar and I look and I'm like, God, I got like $18,000 worth of crap in here, which I'm almost ashamed to say. But, it's stuff I've accumulated over my whole life, a lot of it working in music shops. And I like to play it. I get as much joy in playing my nice things out live. Well, that's just kind of part of it to me.
I'm in the same boat where, like, my beater guitar is like an American original. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, on the ground tonight and stuff. It's like, same thing. Like, I'm accumulated so much stuff over the point in time. I was thinking about that. I guess my number is like either like 8 to 10, somewhere around there,
Part of it is, right? Like, I knew a lot of musicians who were working in music shops, and that fueled extravagant rigs,
It's not having a problem. Right? You guys understand we have a problem. Like, our gas has risen.
And then it's constant. That's what we see. Let us know what you guys see. Like, are you still singing in your area? Like, what does your live rig look like? What do people's live rigs look like? I think more and more people are taking their cool gear out to play, whether it's dive bars or breweries or coffee shops. I don't know. I think that's becoming the norm. I think it's awesome and fun. Let us know what you think in the comments. We'll see you next time.